Hello, Jack. How are you?
Hello, Dr. Miles. I'm well, and yourself?
Hey, great. We're another week of our live streams with Let's Talk About It. And I'm really
Absolutely.
excited about the week beginning. We're starting exactly at 7 o'clock, and a lot has been happening in Atlanta. Jackie, how are things going with you down in South Florida?
South Florida is having these cool but sunny days. It's really kind of, perfect. So things are going well. We are having challenges, of course, within the schools dealing with COVID
Yeah,
cases that are popping up, which, of course, are just going to be par for the course. But we are trying to manage them, case by case.
absolutely great. Before we get into the program for tonight, I appreciate that Jackie Hampton Clemens is out of South Florida and is the CEO of Valley of the Giants, and she's also the co-host of Let's Talk About It this week. But Jackie also comes from a very practical application of education because she's actually a principal in, I think, Broward County. Am I correct, Jackie?
That is correct.
Broward
In
County,
Broward County.
Florida. And those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Willie Miles with Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation located right here in Atlanta, Georgia. And of course, Jackie, our mission is to make children our priority. So
Every day.
so before we get into the tonight's broadcast, I just want to make a few announcements. I'm just hoping that everybody celebrate King's birthday, Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, the way we should. And yeah, of course, it's all about giving, right?
Right. And there were quite a few people, Dr. Miles, I think with COVID, the idea was that giving didn't have to be huge.
Right.
And so I saw quite a few posts where people maybe did something nice for a neighbor, maybe took some comfy blankets for kids. I know of someone, myself and a girlfriend, we did a fruit basket for a caregiver with a gift card. So it really was about making sure you honored him in some way of service.
Right. But Jackie, you also celebrated your Founders Day, right?
We did. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority celebrated 114 years of service to all mankind on the 15th of January. That was a huge event. We had, of course, people celebrating all over the world, but it was a wonderful occasion. And they did a live broadcast from Howard University.
In case our viewers are not familiar with sororities and Alpha Kappa Alpha, tell us a little about that organization.
Oh, of course. One of my favorite topics. So Alpha Kappa Alpha is the first sorority created for Black women by Black women, and the first African-American sorority. It was created in 1908, so that's why we were celebrating 114 years. We are part of what is known as the National Pan-Atlantic, or also referred to as the Divine Nine, which are 9 fraternities, historically Black fraternities and sororities. And we really have a mission. All of them are service oriented, as well as based on sisterhood and brotherhood. But our mission is really to make sure that current generations know who we are, know what we do, know the importance of service to each other and to mankind. Well, so aside from the other stuff you'll hear, Dr. Miles, that's really, what we're focused on.
I want to congratulate you all and all of the Pan-Atlantic groups for the fine work you're doing, not just in Florida, but nationally, because you have implications. Jack, so I want to go back to, we're talking about Dr. King and giving, but in here we actually had a DeKalb County, they decided to give out COVID test kits as a way of giving. And of course,
that's a great way to give.
Exactly. And another organization, Hosea Feed the Hungry, of course, they gave away tons of food. And I really want to thank those organizations that supported them. And I think it was, I hope I'm correct, either the Coke Company or Kroger actually $100,000 to buy food to give to people. Wow. So I hope I got that sponsorship right. But guess what? They didn't give it to us.
Somebody did it. And
they didn't give it to us, but we're glad our sister organizations are taking care of the business. Also, Jackie, here in Atlanta, you mentioned weather in South Florida. We're kind of like bipolar weather also, because it has snow one day and then we have shorts on the day. It got 60 degrees today. Can you believe that?
Well, Dr. Miles, I remember last week you reported on the snow blizzard that was coming through, and apparently you survived, and so did Atlanta. So we're just happy that you guys are on the other side.
It came through very quickly, but we're very happy that we were not affected that much. We did get snow here, but in northern part of Georgia, of course, it was very heavy snow in the mountains.
Right.
Also, as we know, the Black History Month is coming very closely in February.
Yes.
Jackie, you know we're going to be selling those T-shirts again, right?
Yes, I'm excited about that. It's a great time to purchase and wear them. Get them now. You know, you want to have them by February 1st. And you know, I'm glad you brought this up. We really want people to not let these opportunities to educate pass, okay? Because this is what our country is going through right now. So if we're not talking to younger generations about these challenges, great time, then, you know, we're going to continue to go through this. So let's not let this Black History Awareness Month, I've added that,
Mm-hmm.
let's not let it just pass by, people. Make a plan right now as to how you're going to recognize it in your home, as to how you're going to touch any young people within your circle. Again, our focus is always young people. Knowing their history is part of their wellness. So let's, you know, we'd love to hear how you're going to be recognizing and celebrating Black History Awareness Month.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in church. I'm giving the church announcements before we begin.
We
But
are.
are very, very important. They're very, very important to us, and should be
They
to
are.
our Facebook viewers, and also to our Instagram viewers. And again, I don't take you guys for granted because you could be anywhere doing anything. So we're very pleased that we're, Jackie, you know, it's kind of like strange me saying this, but we're actually celebrating our 2nd year into doing this right here. But I'm going to keep moving.
It's an amazing thing. It goes by quickly, audience, because every week we run out of time. We're so excited about upcoming sessions, and we could think of a million more. So we'll be having an anniversary very soon.
Yeah. I also want to thank the foster parents here in Georgia who tune into us, and they've had some questions about whether or not we give certificates for them, and the answer is yes. But I do want to share with them, we don't charge any fees whatsoever. But we're going to ask you to make a small donation to us because there's an administrative cost to doing those certificates. So again, I want to make it very clear, we're never charging you for anything that you're doing. This is a public service to us,
Right.
from us to you all. And so Jackie, you know how I feel about foster parents. You know how I feel about adoptive parents. So
I know.
I'm very,
You're both. You've been
yeah,
both. So near and dear to your heart, for
exactly.
sure, for a very long time.
Jackie, you know, I'm going to call out one of our viewers, and he makes me feel so uncomfortable because he needs to be on here with us. You know, he needs to be like, he
That
needs to be
faithful father we're talking about.
it need to be Jackie, Stephen, and Dr. Miles on this.
Exactly.
But Stephen Turner, and Stephen is I hope I'm getting this right. I think Stephen is the statewide manager for adoptions
I
and
know that.
adoptions here in Georgia. And he's on with us every week, and he's always trying to get his foster parents to come on because guess what? They're getting free training, and they don't have to go anywhere to get it.
And you're getting priceless information.
And
So
so again, I
it's good, but
all of our viewers, Jackie, and I want to welcome, of course, our Facebook folk and our Instagram folk for actually being on with us.
right. And I'm gonna have to get my Facebook together so I can start doing both as well.
You know what's happening? People are saying, listen, we hear Jackie's voice and she's so wonderful. They said, you got to start showing her. I said, she's incognito. She don't want to show her face on. But folks,
Exactly. I gotta stay incognito.
we've been saying for a year, but Jackie's going to be on with us. We're going to get her the phone.
We're
So
gonna make it happen. I'm gonna have
like
the phone and the laptop. That's what we're gonna do.
Jackie, like I have 2 phones right now, one that's on Facebook, of course, and one that's on Instagram.
I
But
can do that.
I know our folks are saying, stop all the gibber-gabbing and get to the topic tonight.
Yes. Oh, this is a
And
great topic.
And I want to bring this topic up, not just because, you know, Jackie, it's just something that's happening and it's been happening for years, but not only I'm seeing it, but Jackie, you're seeing it also, the effects of our children using drugs. And folks, first of all, I want to say, we're not here to judge. We're sharing information with you. And whether you let your child do drugs or not, that's your business. Guess what? I can't control what goes on in your house, but I can give you some ideas. And Jackie and I both give you some ideas on what to look for when children are about to become addicted under the guise of, I got it under control. You know, we hear that all the
Right.
time, "I got it under control."
You know,
So
that's the danger. Is when they really feel they do, and that's why our conversation tonight is about the symptoms
right.
of substance abuse,
Yeah.
right? When it gets to be abuse and addiction.
Yeah.
because most times they don't know those symptoms themselves, and so they need help when they get to that point.
Well, Jackie, I like to always start these programs off with giving some data, first of all, because the data gives us the platform for our discussion. And
Yeah.
some viewers, Jackie, are asking, how can they get more involved with us? I'm saying, well, if you can put your thing on that text and do it in the chat box, you can talk to us. But I think it's going to move to more interaction. We're not figuring out how we're going to do that yet, but our audience is wanting to be able to, I guess, talk more. So we'll figure that out. I'm not sure how we're going to do it, but
well, Dr. Miles, it may be time for Zoom, where we can have an interactive session, and people can contribute. Maybe we can meet each other virtually. Maybe
that's very good. That is an option. And if they're going to say that now, I don't want all these cameras off. But let's get into the topic. Jackie, we'll start with the data.
The data, very, very interesting. And I like starting with the data as well, because it really does give us an opportunity to understand that these are not isolated incidents. So in 2018, 7.1 million young people ages 12 to 20, again, surprising statistics, reported that they drank alcohol beyond just a few sips in the past month. Now that in the past month just kind of tells us it's ongoing, right? But it's a regular thing.
What I want to do also, some people have accused me of just stepping on you when you talk. But I said sometimes what Jackie does, she goes so fast, and I have points I want to make, so I have to slow her down.
I do. That's a habit I'm working on.
Yeah, give me some breathing room so I can actually make some comments, and you can make comments also. But
okay.
The point I'm making, you're making, Jackie, is that you're talking about the 7.1 million. That was in 2018. But also, we're talking about between the ages of 12 to 20. But Jackie, have you heard or seen some parents who will allow their children to taste wine or to taste beer with them?
I wish I could tell you no, but absolutely yes.
And they'll say it's okay,
all
right?
The time. And of course, we make excuses for what wine is. Oh, it's grapes. And, we make excuses, especially when we allow young men to taste beer at early ages, not understanding that developmentally, that these things can become addictions quite easily, and that it's really just not time, and it's inappropriate for young children to sample alcohol of any kind.
Now, we're still on the data part, right? We haven't gotten to, but just want to, but I want to mention this, Jackie. Now we're keeping it clean because we're saying alcohol, but I've actually seen, I might say seen, I'm talking about, well, it's been brought to me in certain part of information where parents actually let their kids sample marijuana, like take a hit.
Well, that's kind of, it's here in our data, okay? And I think, again, the percentage is going to shock people.
Okay.
Because we always think it's isolated. By the time they're in the 12th grade, 46.6% of teens have tried illicit drugs. So we're talking 50%, 1 in every 2 kids, by the time they're in the 12th grade, have already tried illicit drugs.
And Jackie,
I mean, that's a problem. That's a pandemic.
We're not just talking about, aspirin. We're talking about heavy stuff. We're talking about amphetamines. We're talking about, as we get into it, we're talking about our kids who are sampling coke. But I want to keep this, I'm trying to keep it on task.
We have a lot to get through today. We're going to have to.
The key is, it's about addictions.
Right.
And addictions. Okay, the data.
11.89 million 18 to 25-year-olds used drugs in the last month. Okay, again, last month indicates ongoing. 4,777 Americans aged 15 to 24 years old died of an overdose of illicit drugs in 1 year. And I'm sure that those numbers are just regional numbers, and that the data's the numbers larger. So I'm going to repeat that one. Nearly 5,000 Americans aged 15 to 24 years of age died of an overdose of illicit drugs in a single year. 11.2% of overdose deaths are age 15 to 24. And let's focus for just 1 second on the term overdose. They're taking more than their systems can manage, and it's taking their life. Okay.
So as we're looking at this drug usage, and we're looking at this drug culture, which is a culture that we're in, we have to ask ourselves the question, why are our children doing this? And again, I think as a society, Jack, we can sometimes take it very casually.
We
That's all
do.
right. They're just being children.
Because we've become desensitized, because we're hearing this all too often, but it's really something that we really don't need to get accustomed to.
But the other part to it, and we talk about this in each one of our live streams, which every week we talk about this. We cannot not talk about how parents play a role in
Impact this,
that.
exactly.
And what I was doing, I was trying to cautiously say what I was going to say. But every week we talk about parent engagement and parent communications. And so, Jackie, if we know, and we when parents are like, oh, my child won't do that, I say, yeah, you ain't
Right.
got.
I was about to say we know, but we really are in denial. I asked a coworker today, just kind of observing some students, if she felt that parenting had been abandoned in our
Mhm.
society. Do you think? And she said, without a doubt. We're seeing too many children who are on their own. We're seeing too many children with parents who are friends, therefore willing to sample drugs with them, allow them to try drugs. And parents are not dealing with developmental issues within their children in many instances. We, of course, are not talking 100%. We know that there are many fabulous parents out there listening, learning, and actively engaged in raising their children. But there are far too many who are just kind of there with their children.
Jackie, as we talk about these issues that our children, our families face, there is no way I cannot apply the generational template over them.
Mm-hmm.
The template.
Mm-hmm.
The question is,
Mm-hmm.
are we parenting? Well, guess what? I'm not sure people even using the word parenting anymore. You know,
That's true.
it's my children and I, we cool, and that's
Mm-hmm.
right, parenting. And so we have guidelines for parenting, but I think some of the younger parents see it as old fogey.
Absolutely. I mean, that could be one of our sessions in and of itself. That is that question of, how to raise children and what's appropriate. And as always, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. But what we try to encourage, of course, Dr. Miles, people to do is get some information, get
Yeah,
some data, know the research, understand what your child is dealing with in this world that we didn't. Okay. It's a new world. And honestly, Dr. Miles, I don't know how anyone parents blindly.
yeah.
Okay.
But Jackie, what I want to do is I'm going to file a disclaimer already, right? Because I know we're not going to get through this here. But our next week's topic is when parents do drugs with their children.
Right.
So what we don't cover tonight, we're going to let it segue into next week's topic. We're going to let
Right.
it topic. Since I did interfere already, I gotta say a shout out to someone. I want to say a shout out to Betty Early, who's on with us on Instagram, and also Thierry Jones. I think Thierry is in LA now.
Oh, wow.
In Georgia. Thanks and he's a wonderful photographer. So thank you for joining us. And also, I want to thank also Grovius Black out of Sierra Leone. And
Okay.
he's in Sierra Leone. It's like 12 o'clock there, I think.
Oh, nice.
so, so
That's dedication.
yeah, and Jackie, I know I'm getting off task, but at some point I want to get him on. And what I want to
Okay.
do is talk about the advantages that we as Americans have that we criticize so much versus other countries who don't have, our poor is rich to where he is. All right, so much for that.
Exactly.
Let's
Yeah. And that's something, again, very important to share with our kids. So the statistics that we've shared, these statistics show us that the earlier a teen starts experimenting, the more likely the behavior will develop into an addiction. I'm going to repeat that. The earlier they start experimenting, the more likely that behavior will develop into an addiction. Also, the longer an addiction is allowed to take root, the harder it is to treat. If you recognize the signs, which is the topic of our conversation, if you recognize the signs of drug and alcohol abuse in your teen, don't wait to get them the help they need.
what I want to do is sort of like put a pin there for a little bit to talk about, these signs. And to many parents, there is no signs of addiction or substance use because we've normalized
The
drug use.
behaviors.
We've normalized drug usage. We've normalized marijuana. We've normalized, alcohol. And people, don't forget now, we're not here to judge. We're just giving you information. We've normalized it. So there is no, you should not be drinking.
Right.
We're not setting those models for them.
No, we're not. And unfortunately, we're not guiding them as parents, but we're also not guiding them as role models.
Exactly.
Because we are, very often engaged in it. And of course, don't get me wrong, there's a place to tell your children, I'm an adult and you're not. But it's also about role modeling and knowing an appropriate time. If you're drinking alcohol first thing in the morning, even though you're an adult, it's not really a good, thing. If you're drinking alcohol every day as an adult and your child is watching this, it's not a good thing. Because the one thing we know as adults is children will do what you do and not what you say.
Well, also know that drug usage and cigarettes has for many years been considered a gateway drug. So it is a drug because it has nicotine in it, and people become addicted to cigarettes.
And people are very addicted to it.
And so here we are.
And it is deadly.
But here we are, Jackie, talking about the basic interaction that should occur with child and parents, and that is called communications. So I think that just when we talk about having communications about sex with your children, it's critically important that you have communications about the use of drugs.
Right. And I want to put those communications under the term of child protection.
Mm-hmm.
Child protective conversations.
Exactly.
You are protecting their health, their well-being, their life. You are attempting to protect your child the same as you would from a predator, someone who would physically harm them. You need to consider those drugs and that alcohol someone who would harm them, and you need to protect your children with communication and information.
Well, Jackie, in the addiction field, we immediately say that anyone who uses drugs are finding a way to relieve their pain.
Mm-hmm.
Painkillers. We're talking about, because alcohol is a drug. When you ask me, why do you drink? To make myself feel good. So my question is, so why do you not feel good?
Right. To stop thinking about my problems. Okay, well, after you stop thinking about them, they're still there and you have to deal with them. So yes.
The folk who smoke weed, the adult. Well, I smoke weed because I'm bipolar and no other medication works. Now, in the industry, we know that's true. But the point is that we got a lot of bipolar people these days, so everybody wants to do it. But who are we?
And are you doing it more than you need to control your bipolar? I mean, the bottom line is has it become an addiction versus a treatment?
Well, anything that's done excessively.
Exactly.
Anything
and
that's
then
done
you have to define excessively. Every day
is an addiction.
Right. So let's talk about some consequences of addiction to any substance. Okay. Consequences of addiction to any substance include brain abnormalities, slow thinking, impaired learning and memory issues. Drug abuse can also deplete the brain of certain chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, sending high schoolers into a prolonged depression and leaving them susceptible to more destructive behaviors. Now, this is the first time I'm hearing this, and this is significant.
Well, Jackie, I want to share with you now, because it's your first time hearing it. But in the field, guess what? We know that. We see it every day.
Well, what's interesting, Dr. Miles, is I don't think people associate these abusive addictions to depression. If you're doing marijuana to feel better, no one's thinking you're depressed. But they need to know that the effect of these drugs can lead you just to that.
Jackie,
depression and being susceptible to destructive behaviors.
And I'm going to add to that, not just depression, but any mood disorder.
Right. And this kind of goes without saying. It's almost funny. Furthermore, teen substance abuse of any kind can have a major negative impact on their academic performance. Right. And at that point now, we're really talking about the future on another level.
Well, part of the argument with young people, and not only just young people, but part of the argument with those who use substances is that, guess what? When I smoke weed, I think clearer. And I'm
I hear it
saying,
all the time.
but the point is, you don't need a justification to do it, because you're grown, But I think we have to be more cautious as to the message we're sending to our children. Because I smoke weed, and I don't, but I'm saying because I smoke
Right.
weed,
But the parents who do say
I
because they do it, it's okay.
I should not be giving permission to my child to smoke it and then one other reason is because I prefer to smoke it at the house versus being in the streets. So we're sort of like creating these addictions with our children.
About brain development
Mhm.
and the time at which we are exposing our children to this, when again we know that their brains are not fully developed in their early 20s, so let alone in their teens.
I,
Okay.
I just think we have to rethink. And you know what it is? It really is rethinking our values. And it's not, again, I want to be very clear. This is not a judgment because guess what? What you do really doesn't impact me. It's a decision that you make and that you have to live with. And our goal here tonight is awareness. Our goal tonight is simply awareness. And we're talking about children and drug addiction. We
Right.
know I talked about children who are in pain, but people who are in pain use drugs. We're talking about children who are highly susceptible to abuse. We're talking about the trauma. We're talking about children who are ignored in the homes. We're talking about children who are talked to negatively and their self-esteem is damaged. Are you with me?
Right. And that's what parents need to realize. All the way through high school is very challenging. The
Mm-hmm.
social aspects, the academic aspects, the
Yeah.
home aspects, who am I? All the way through 12th grade, you're trying to find yourself, right? So when you add a substance abuse to that, you actually block that process.
Mm-hmm.
You're running or allowing the child to escape and really miss some very important developmental steps. And as it said earlier, at a certain point, the damage can be hard to reverse. So
Let,
just really be careful.
let me give you this negative trends. Alcohol causes 6.5 times more teen deaths than all other illicit drugs combined.
And this other fact about alcohol is really important because a lot of people think that, it's not the alcohol. It says despite the decrease in overall use, alcohol is still the leading most abused drugs by teens. Easy to get access to, quick to consume, right? So we need parents to be
But
aware about that.
let's talk about why it's easy to consume. Because many of us have bars in our house
Absolutely.
and we don't measure how much alcohol in the 15 bottles every day.
Right.
So
And it takes a second to take a sip.
it's either guess what, Jackie? Take a sip in the morning, a sip after school, and a sip at night. Nobody ever knows the difference. And try
Oh,
to
let's face it, some of these
why
bottles
is
could go missing and the parents wouldn't
why
know.
is sleep so much?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And sort of the worst thing is not think, oh my goodness, maybe they do have access and maybe they are using something that is causing that. Okay.
But
So
Jackie, but I really want the parents to an active role in observing their children. And I don't want to get into this punishing because it simply doesn't work. We're talking
that's
about
not the point.
a positive relationship with your children, or you can talk about anything.
Right. Absolutely. So there's an annual survey of 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students done by the Monitoring the Future survey, which is funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And that's where the data on these negative trends comes from. So I think we already said alcohol causes 6.5 times more teen deaths. So now we have children dying from alcohol use than other illicit drugs combined. So parents, please do not take the alcohol in your home or your child's access to it for granted.
Look at the data on eighth graders. 8% of eighth graders and 25% of 12th graders admitted to binge drinking in the past 30 days. Now we know what binge drinking is, right?
hope we do.
Binge drinking is drinking when you can't drink no more.
Right. It's excessive, in other words, like binging on something. So just kind of getting wasted. Yeah. Okay. 44% of 12th graders reported drinking alcohol again in the past month. Again, meaning they're drinking it regularly. This is not something I did a year ago. I did it this past month. Then marijuana. Marijuana accounts for the largest percentage of illegal drug use by teens and has been on the rise for years.
Yeah, let's have a conversation about this. Let's have a conversation, because I don't want to just, I want to check out, what I don't want to do is just spur out data to them. I really want us to talk about the data also. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it means in practical and real life situations. And all of us, I don't say all of us, many people I know, Jackie, have had someone in their family who was substance addicted, right?
Absolutely. Well, I the same here.
Yeah.
I know most of the people I know have someone in their family who had some substance addiction. Right. Yes.
And when you talk to those people, that substance addiction didn't start as an adult.
No. Most of them started anywhere between middle and high school. Exactly. But certainly by high school. And this is a side note, but many of them started even at the college level. They started because people were trying to fit in.
Right.
Right. So this is exposure. This is someone else who's already doing it, expose you, tell you that it's okay. Hey, not a problem. Look at me. I'm fine. But again, none of us know about our own addictive tendencies until we're actually using, and we don't know. So everyone's different.
Well, let's do the comparison, because people talk about being addicted to drugs, but folk are addicted to a whole lot of stuff. Some people are addicted to food,
games, TV.
For food, people have that same insatiable feeling for drugs.
Right. Never enough.
Right.
Right.
So when I talk about this being very practical, I'm simply saying that many of our family members are drug users. And if you were to ask them, to interview them and ask them when it started, they would tell you that it started when they were very young. And so my comment, Jackie, to you is like, well, if they started at age 12, when did these bad negative feelings start manifesting?
And again, we're talking about symptoms. So let's just consider middle school a symptom, people. Let's consider, adolescence a symptom, because it's when they get exposed. It's when they're more susceptible to trying something. And more often than not, they're trying it without any knowledge, any data about the negative effects and the possibilities, the dangerous possibilities of their usage. They're just trying something. And we've all heard it. Everybody's doing it. Well, everybody's tried it.
And the most important
President Obama smoked marijuana,
I think the most important thing also is for us to understand, and I keep bringing this up and I'm going to keep wrapping it around, that having a positive relationship with your child is critically important.
Your volume just went out. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So, but the other issue is making sure that our children, especially during the middle school age, Jackie, a bunch of stuff. So therefore, go through puberty also, which means that their brains are not as developed and they're more impulsive. They're more impulsive.
And just more in need of identity, self-identity. We know that in middle school and high school, and this is probably for everyone, the pressure to fit in, even if you weren't trying to be the popular person, to fit in with whatever your group was.
Right.
That hasn't gone away. It's still there. It's going to be there, 50 years from now. It is what it is. It's youth developing. And we as parents need to be very careful to be protective of the environment that they're developing in.
And again, to our viewers, we're not here saying you should not be drinking. Yes, my mom always told me it wasn't what you do, is how you do it.
Right.
And I'm not saying you have to sneak in your house. Oh, I got to sneak to drink something because I want my kid. No, I'm saying have the conversation.
Exactly. Have them understand that there's a huge difference in a fully grown adult's the effect of alcohol on a fully grown adult and developed brain, and one that's not.
Exactly.
And what's appropriate, I mean, just like any other thing is appropriate. You can't drive a car at a certain age, you know. You can't do other things at a certain age. You can't go buy the alcohol at the age, so you shouldn't be drinking it. If you're not old enough to buy it, let's just stick with that. um, but so yeah, conversation is how you get through that, how you know, remain authentic, you know, allow yourself to be the adult that you are, but still raise your children, um, you know, in the right environment with the right expectations. And I like what Faithful Father has said, you know, it's recreation versus running from the issues,
Mm-hmm.
you know. um, so again, all of our sessions, what they have in common is that we're asking parents to step up, put your role as a parent first, right? Be the friend. Once you know, when your child turns 35, y'all can be friends. Okay, get them there.
Well,
Be the parent first.
the other thing too is that, you know, and I hear this a lot from young people, is that they really don't see marijuana as being a drug. They see it just as cigarettes. You know, that
It's herbal.
it's just as common as that. And I always like to make them aware
Cigarettes
of
are dangerous. I mean, how many commercials do we
being
need about people who died from them?
being aware of the substances and the impact that the substances have on their bodies. And so it's
And
going
you
to be
know,
very important that that parents become knowledgeable of the effects of drugs, other than the experience of it.
right.
You
And
know,
Dr. Mouse, have you noticed there's not as much social media about be drug free as there was when we were coming up? And let's now, this is something that's real, okay? CBD is everywhere.
mm-hmm.
They're talking about the health benefits of marijuana. And so our children are going, hey, this is medicine. You know,
Right.
we now know it's a good thing, but let's talk about when and how it's a good thing, when it's appropriate, when it's helpful. It is not helpful in any form for undeveloped youth and for children. So we need to clarify that and not allow social media to put so much out about this particular substance
Exactly.
that the concerns for it are completely eliminated. You should be concerned.
It's kind of makes you brought that up. We don't see, you know, the substance abuse prevention like we used to. And I think part of it is that politicians have realized that these kids now vote. I mean, people vote who are smokers, so they don't say anything that's going,
Wow.
because they want the votes.
Yeah, right. Well, a couple of good things in our comments here, Faithful Father. You know, Fresh Prince did rap about parents just don't understand. And if kids are saying weed is the new sex, wow. Yeah, Dr. Miles, we're gonna have to do more than some sessions here.
Well, you know, the thing about it is that I think part of this is that we become a society of normalization, which I'm simply saying that it's normed now. And I don't think there's very much we can do about it. I think that marijuana is normed, and there are pushes for making it legal. So I'm not for or against. My point is that I think that, you know, years ago, alcohol was prohibited. You know, it was like prohibition. You know, they had to sneak it in and
True.
deals. So it's
Right.
it's the same thing that's happening with marijuana. So the point I want to make to parents about children is that you're responsible for them to give them the information. Now,
Right.
what they make is going to be them.
Right. And that is the point. These things are being normalized. They're everywhere. But there are a lot of things that are everywhere that are not for children. They're simply not for children.
That's
And
the,
we really need to try to give our children that opportunity for that full frontal lobe to develop so that they can make real decisions, so that they can discern, you know, what's a challenge or what's appropriate. And at these early ages, they simply cannot.
wait,
So we are those protectors. You know, it's funny. Again, we protect them physically. We protect them from the rain, protect them from the rain and the elements and obvious predators. But this is a predator. These are predators,
but
and we really need to be thinking.
checking this out. But I think just a little differently. I think that kids can make decisions. I think they can know what's right and wrong based upon the information they're given. If you're not given any information, on the negative effects of drug usage, guess what? And you're getting all your information from street institutions,
Right.
then you're gonna respond to street institutions. So I'm saying that, you know, we can do all the talk we want to, but the parents have taken an active role in making their children aware of things that impact their lives. Sex, early sex impact their lives, how drugs impact their lives, you know, how all of these things, you know, sort of affects my total being.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of making a decision, absolutely, when it's an informed decision.
And
And
what's
I agree with you. Children will at least listen to the facts. And believe it or not, that's going to be in their head when that time comes. So they're at least going to think about it. But imagine that child in the situation having received zero conversations, information
from
from a
parents?
parent.
Mhm.
And that is happening far too often. They're not saying anything.
Right. So parents, we're on both our Facebook followers and our Instagram followers. We're encouraging parents not to really, and you hear this all the time from us, get engaged with your children. You know, I tell some parents when they talk about kids on drugs, I said, well, guess what? Drugs ain't free. So monitor money, monitor how they spend. If you're giving it to them, you should be monitoring it.
Right. And again, a point made in our chat about the fact that certain generations simply never talked about, you know, how they became sexually active, drug use, rock and roll, especially during the 60s and Woodstock and all of these things. They never talked about it. And so now their children and their grandchildren are not talking. But guess what? It's dangerous and it's deadly. Um, those that generation did not have social media to broadcast every second and every negative things directly into the brain, into vision with these phones. So it's a different world, and we just have to talk.
So
Dr. Miles says it all the time. Communication is the key. Even if you don't think you know what you're talking about, saying something, bring up the topic, ask your child to teach you. I mean, talk to your children. Just talk to them.
So one of the questions is, you know, why do kids, or why do they start this thing in the first place? And I think you mentioned it previously. A lot of it's because of peer pressure, trying to find their place, trying to find what group they should be a part of. I want to be cool. They don't want to be seen as being odd. So if everybody in the group is smoking weed, guess what? And what's interesting, I'm gonna smoke it too. But the data shows that, Jackie, 20% of this smoking weed occurs on school campuses.
Which and we know it's true. I'm surprised the number's 20%, to be honest with you. I would think it'd be a lot higher. Right. Current and even past marijuana use is linked to significantly lower academic performance. So you're on campus getting high, and of course, you're not prepared for that test, and you're just not thinking clearly enough. The statistics on teenage marijuana use show that middle and high school marijuana use is a word that we're afraid of, is
Yeah.
common. It's common. That's a concern that it's common.
I just think that at this point, there are some positive approaches to talking to our children. And again, it is not just talking about drugs, it is talking about an array of things they're going to be coming in contact with during puberty and throughout life. So part of our responsibility is to train and educate our children, not just academically, but also socially, and to share with them what consequences are for doing certain things. And, you know, I think the most important thing is that our children don't have to know everything we do. I hear parents about, well, we're transparent. You know, our house, well, you can say that if you want to, but there's some things that kids just should not know because it's not their business, first of all. And
Amen.
it's
Again, confusion, out of place. Um, you know, we keep emphasizing one of the most basic things, which is a simple conversation. Um, but how about talking to that child just about who they are,
right.
right? Building that self-esteem. Children know when you see them. and
Right.
when you don't. It's not about if you're in the house. It's not about if you said hello, good morning, good night. They know when you see them as a person. So a child that is seen as a person at home is better equipped to deal with that outside of the home. So talk to them about them. I challenge anybody on this call tonight. Do you know your child's favorite color? Do you know their favorite song? Do you know the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to them in school?
So one of the questions we may have is, are we as parents creating this drug culture in our children? If if people use substances to mitigate pain, so what kind of pain are we causing our children? Is it the pain of
Sorry.
is it the pain of not being acknowledged? Is it the pain of never saying anything positive to them? Is it the pain of the divorce? The foundation is people use drugs to relieve pain. So children use drugs to relieve pain. So what kind of pain am I causing as a, and I'm not talking about as a teenager, I'm talking about from the very early beginning. What kind of pain am I creating? And the pain that I'm creating is going to cause some mental health issues, and it's going to cause my child to use substance. So think about that for a second. What kind of pain are you causing your children and child rearing practices that will lead them to using drugs?
Right. And I want to add to that it could be, a pain caused by the absence of something like your attention. There is no perfect parenting. We have to acknowledge that. Unfortunately, it just doesn't exist. It is a challenge. Every person is different. Every parent is different. Every child is different. So that's why communication, attempting to communicate, is so important. But again, what's happening that, this pain is growing and developing? And what can you do to
Our viewers, what are you all, what kind of feedback are you getting from children or children you've dealt with in the past regarding substance use? And while you're chatting in the box, we'll just continue on. Faithful Father said, I believe is 50-50, probably part experimentation, pure pressure, or possibly pain. We got to find out the root. And what he means by the roots are root causes. And the root causes, ready, are going to always go back to family.
It's sad, but it's true. We could do a little bit more research on those who aren't experimenting and find out, what their major contributing factors are, and then, share more of that information as well. Like what is working and what's helping people avoid it. It's been a slippery slope. It will continue to be a slippery slope. It'll be an issue with every generation because these substances are not going away.
Well, the substances are getting harsher. So we've only talked about alcohol and we talked about marijuana, but there are many other drugs. There's the cocaine, there's oxycodone.
Non-medical amphetamines,
yes,
they say is on the rise.
So we're just talking about that soft stuff, but there are many kids, there are many children, there are many teens that are addicted to oxycodone.
Right. A lot of the drugs that are used to treat ADHD, I think is one of them Adderall, Dr. Miles?
Yep. Yes.
So high 6.9% of high school seniors report misuse of Adderall. I mean, we're literally putting that in their pockets and they're abusing it.
Well, guess what, Jackie? We ain't got to go to drugs. We can go to the chemicals that are in our houses, household chemicals.
Yep.
Nipping the glue.
Right. And then just the societal culture of medicating in this way versus counseling. Right.
Right. I just think
medicating with chemicals.
Yes, exactly. In other words, it's amazing you say medicating with chemicals, because I'm going to say medicating our pains away, or drugging our pains away.
Drugging them away.
Drugging our
or attempting to drug them away when in fact we're kind of adding to them with the drugs.
Exactly.
Right.
And
I don't think we have any cases of positive outcomes from you know, I had some issues and after the alcohol use, I got better?
Well, we do. It's called temporary.
Well, yeah, as in 10 minutes, short
So,
lived.
so, and for some people, the 10 minutes of being free of pain is worth a lifetime because Jackie, one thing, people don't want to deal with their pain. And part of it is, it's not avoiding. So what happens, I began to avoid dealing with stuff. And so I'll drink myself away from it versus saying, okay,
Reality.
let's talk about let's deal with,
Yeah,
let's deal with the abusive mom. Let's deal with mom who was abusive to me. Let's deal with dad who was abusive. So when you deal with the issue, guess what? The issue goes away. When you avoid it, it comes back compounded.
right. Here's another, important fact that we have to consider. Nearly a quarter of American high schoolers use at least one type of illicit drug, but many use more than one.
Yeah.
I think or combine them with alcohol or tobacco. So, now we got cocktails. We have chemical cocktails. We know they're experimenting. That's why some of the overdoses are occurring. So again, parents, and sometimes, Dr. Miles, I think we can present parenting as this like overwhelming thing, but I really do think you say it all the time. The thing that keeps it from being overwhelming is communication.
But let me share with you. I want to. Faithful Father said one time he had tried and it was not pain, but purely experimental. And I'm going to sort of like challenge him on that, because when you talk about children doing things experimentally, the question is they're trying to find out something, right? But they're trying to find out something to relieve what? If I was confident in myself, I don't need to try drugs. I don't need to experiment with drugs to see if I'm confident. If I feel good about me, I don't need to experiment. No, so I move out the experimentation, period. I accept it as an option, but what I'm seeing are kids doing it because of peer pressure. And when I say pain, I'm talking about neglect. I'm talking about emotional pain. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Very good point.
I'm talking about depression. I'm talking about anxiety. I'm talking about ADHD. And they're doing all these things simply to relieve themselves of something. So I have not met any kids who I talk to that says, guess what? I just want to try it. Now, if they do say that, I then have to say, why? Because I want to know how it makes you feel. Why you can't take my word for it? Why?
Well, also because we live in a society that makes it cool.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not overlook the fact that, these things come across as cool, as desirable, because the children don't see the downside. They don't see the overdose. They don't see the academic failure. They don't.
Yeah. You're going to find that anytime we use, Jackie, guess what? Even when we drink recreationally, right? So why I got to drink to feel better? So I say we drink because you want to drink, but why do I drink to feel better? And then you feel better, and the cheap alcohol, you're going to feel worse in the end.
Mm-hmm. You're going to feel horrible. And you know it. Half the times when they do it, they know it. But you're not telling a child, sure, have this drink, but you're going to have an excruciating headache tomorrow morning.
Jackie, something. If I were the parent of today, I find out what are the leading drugs kids use and their alcohol, and the favorite alcohol. I would have a kitchen table conversation. I would have that crap right there. So listen, okay, this right here. Now, it's not punitive. I'm not upset. We're just having a conversation on education. When you drink this gin, the effects of the gin, this is what it's going to be. Do you want to feel that way? But our data even also shows, we can get that number though, that many of the kids admit that after drinking, they drive.
Right. That's another conversation.
So I would
drinking and driving, what do they call it? Smoking and driving,
Jackie,
driving baked, and all of that.
I would have the conversation. I would bring that stuff out around a table side conversation.
And get the stats and get the images of children who, yeah, scared straight. Let's do some scared straight. Absolutely.
I don't think it's scared. I think what it is, it's awareness.
Informed.
Yeah, exactly. Because the key is, you're not trying to scare them out of it, and you ain't trying to create anxiety. What you're saying, if you're gonna do it, make an informed decision. Now, if you're gonna do it, this was gonna happen. So that's in your hands. So I ain't gotta experiment now because I've been told what's gonna happen. Now, the different kids gonna say, well, it affects people differently. Well, I would then say as a child, I would say that, guess what? I got an idea what's gonna be like. I don't want to be inebriated. I don't want to be I'm out of control. I don't want to be falling against the wall. I don't want to be vomiting.
I have to say, and I say this even for adult women, the idea of being kind of out of it, like, when is that safe outside of your home? Like, seriously?
But I just don't. Part of it, I say I don't get it, but I do get it. I mean, who would not want to be in control of themselves at all times?
I'll be honest with you. I don't. No one I know. That's way over my head that anyone would want that, even dealing with pain. I just don't understand that.
Some people boast and say, yeah, I was tore up. I had a good time.
Oh, yeah.
So
on a regular basis.
It makes you vulnerable, right?
That's my thought.
And with adults, we're vulnerable. So with children who are tore up, rape, molestation, bad decisions, and nothing else but death. I mean, making bad decisions.
Criminal records from driving early on. Children can be labeled as sex offenders for, behavior that's applying or happening when they're not quite in their right mind. I mean, the list goes on and on of the potential life altering possibilities.
Could you imagine living the rest of your life knowing that you were a drunk driver and you killed someone?
Dr. Miles, I believe very much in but for the, grace of God, there go. So just the thought of that. No.
So
how do you come? I don't want to say how do you come back for it, because it kind of begs finding out, and I don't want to know. But right. Because of something you put in your mouth, because of alcohol, something you don't have to do.
Jackie, we're out of time.
I know. I was watching it.
I'm going to say this right here for parents as a closing. Just communicate with your children. What can you do? Communicate.
Get the information and communicate. Look it up. Hey, you have a cell phone. Look it up.
And I just say, love your children, because you don't know. We're talking about these influences, right? We don't know who's influencing our children.
You don't know who, you don't know when, but you can almost count on it happening. So make sure you influence them first.
Yeah, influence your child and give them the appropriate information. Hey, it's been great. We're going to see y'all next week. Keep your eyes open for our t-shirts. Go to our website. And for the foster parents who are on tonight, guess what? Don't send us these requests every week. Send it once a month, and we'll make sure you get your certifications, all right? Hey, it's been great. Jackie, we'll see you next week. Have a great time.
See you next week. Stay warm, Dr. Mouse.
I'm going to try. Hey, thanks to our Facebook.
Good night, Facebook Father, and all of our listeners, and Mouse Early.